Ladies and gentlemen, in life, kindness is a gift. But when kindness becomes unlimited, it turns into self-destruction. Many of us confuse love with availability, loyalty with sacrifice, and support with slavery. We answer calls at midnight, we fix problems we didn't create, we show up for people who would never show up for us. And slowly, silently, painfully, we become exhausted givers in a world full of strategic takers. Today, I want to share something that may hurt, but will free you. You don't need to stop being kind. You don't need to stop helping, but you must stop giving people unlimited access to your time, your mind, your emotions, and your energy. Because when you are too available, people stop seeing your value. When you stop respecting your boundaries, people stop respecting you. So let's explore together how to stay kind without becoming used, how to stay generous without losing yourself, and how to reclaim your worth before it slips away. When you make yourself constantly available, you unknowingly lower the very value you carry within you. Human nature is simple. People don't appreciate what they can access anytime, any day without effort. Think about it, the sun rises every morning, and yet most people don't pause to admire it. But a rainbow appears rarely, and suddenly everyone pulls out their phones to capture it. Scarcity creates appreciation, rarity creates respect. When you allow everyone to reach you instantly, freely, and repeatedly, without any boundaries, you slowly shift from being a blessing to becoming background noise. Many times you're not being ignored because you're unimportant. You're being ignored because you become predictable. You become an emotional vending machine. Press the button and you'll respond. People stop valuing the things they assume they will never lose. Your time becomes their convenience. Your attention becomes their entitlement. Your presence becomes their habit. They don't see your kindness, they see your availability. They don't see your sacrifice, they see your accessibility. And very quietly, the respect they once had for you begins to fade. When you are always available, people don't see your effort. They see your presence as normal, not special. They don't feel gratitude, they feel expectation. Every time you say yes, even when your mind is tired and your heart is heavy, they take it as your default setting. They begin to assume you have no priorities of your own. They believe your life revolves around their needs. And sadly, the more you give, the less they pause to question whether you're okay. They become accustomed to taking from you without even realizing the weight you carry. Your value shines the brightest when you protect your time and energy. When you respond after finishing your own responsibilities. When you create space for your own thoughts, your own growth, your own peace. When you allow people to miss you, to wait for you, to realize that your presence is not automatic. A little distance creates gratitude. A little delay creates respect. A little boundary creates value. Being less available doesn't make you selfish, it makes you wise. Because your life is not meant to be lived on call, for those who only show up when they need something. You deserve relationships where your presence is celebrated, not exploited. You deserve connections that understand your worth, not those that drain it. When you stop being constantly available, you don't lose people. You lose the ones who are using your availability, not appreciating your humanity. And in that loss, you gain something far greater, your dignity, your peace, and your true value. When you keep giving and giving without pause, something deep inside you begins to break down, slowly, silently, and often without you realizing it. Emotional exhaustion doesn't arrive dramatically, it creeps in. It begins with small moments, when you feel drained after a simple conversation, when you sigh before responding to a message, when you help someone but feel strangely empty instead of fulfilled. This emptiness is not because you lack kindness, it's because you've been pouring from a cup that no one is helping you refill. You become the person everyone turns to but no one checks on. You're the one who listens, comforts, fixes, and supports, yet your own emotional needs remain untouched. You tell others, "I'm fine," even when you feel like you're sinking. You keep showing up not because you have endless strength, but because you think that if you stop, someone will be disappointed, upset, or inconvenienced. But your heart is not a machine. It needs rest. It needs moments of stillness. It needs care just as much as anyone else's. The painful truth is that people rarely notice your exhaustion. They're so used to your strength that they forget you're human. They expect your support because you've offered it so consistently. They think you're capable of carrying everyone because you've never complained. And slowly they mistake your silence for infinite energy. But inside, you feel the weight increasing. Your mind becomes foggy, your emotions become heavy, your patience shortens, and your joy begins to fade. Overgiving is dangerous because it convinces you that your worth comes from how much you do for others. You start feeling guilty for resting, guilty for saying no, guilty for choosing yourself. You begin to believe that if you stop giving, you'll lose people. And that fear keeps you trapped in a cycle of emotional burnout. But the truth is, the right people won't leave when you set limits. Only the ones who misuse your kindness will. Emotional exhaustion also clouds your judgment. You start saying yes automatically because you're too tired to explain no. You help with problems that drain you because you feel responsible for others' comfort. You become the emotional sponge for everyone's stress, anger, sadness, and frustration, while no one absorbs even a drop of your own. And this imbalance slowly kills your inner peace. Your emotional health matters, your energy matters, your mental space matters. You deserve time to breathe, to heal, to feel lighter. You deserve relationships where support flows both ways, not where you're the only source. When you overgive, you teach the world that your boundaries don't exist. When you keep burning yourself for others, you eventually run out of flame, and the people you burn for don't even notice the ashes. Protecting your emotional energy is not selfish, it's essential. Because if you collapse, the world won't pause. If you break down, most people won't even understand why. You owe it to yourself to step back, to rest, to say not today, to choose peace over pressure, and to remember that you're allowed to exist for yourself, not just for others. When you stop overgiving, you stop betraying your own heart. You start honoring it instead. People don't just decide how to treat you on their own. You teach them through your actions, your reactions, and your consistency. Every time you answer immediately, even when you're busy. Every time you fix a problem that wasn't yours. Every time you drop everything for someone who wouldn't do the same for you. You quietly send them a message. My time is not as important as yours. My needs can wait. My boundaries don't matter. This teaching doesn't happen in one day. It's subtle, it's gradual. And because it happens slowly, you don't even realize that you've trained someone to see you as the go-to, the always there, the they'll handle it person. Before you know it, your helpfulness becomes your identity in their eyes, not your talents, not your dreams, not your personality, just your availability. Human behavior works on patterns. When people receive something repeatedly without asking twice, they begin to expect it. Expectations quickly turn into entitlement, and entitlement turns into disrespect, not always intentionally, but naturally. For example, if you respond to texts immediately, people start thinking you always will. If you always say yes to favors, they assume you'll never say no. If you fix every crisis, they conclude that you must fix every future crisis. You become their default solution instead of a valued human being with your own life. This is why you might notice that when you need help, the same people who depend on you suddenly become busy, unavailable, or not sure if they can. It's not always malice. Many simply don't see you as someone who needs support. They see you as someone who provides it. Because that's the role you've always played. You unknowingly trained them to believe you're strong enough to handle everything and soft enough to tolerate anything. And as long as you continue rewarding their behavior with unlimited availability, nothing will change. People adjust to what benefits them. If your pattern benefits their comfort, they won't question it. They will continue expecting instant replies, constant help, endless patience, and zero boundaries. Not because they're bad people, but because you've never shown them what your limits look like. Training people happens in the opposite direction too. When you start setting boundaries, delaying responses, saying I can't right now, or prioritizing your own responsibilities, you send a new message. My time is valuable. My energy is limited. I am not on call for everyone. I treat myself with respect, and I expect the same from you. Once people see that you respect your own boundaries, they begin respecting them too. At least the ones who genuinely care. The ones who disappear, complain, or get irritated were never interested in you, only in what you could give them. Notice how people act when you stop being instantly available. Some will adjust and appreciate you more. Others will show their true colors. Either way, you learn something important. Your limits teach people how to love you. Your boundaries teach people how to treat you. Your decisions teach people how important your time is. When you stop training people or take you for granted, you start training them to value you. And that shift, though painful, is the beginning of real respect, mutual connection, and emotional freedom. Saying no is one of the most difficult skills for a kind-hearted person. We grow up believing that refusing someone makes us rude, selfish, or unkind. So we stretch ourselves thin. We say yes when our mind is tired. We agree when our heart is unwilling. We commit when we have no time left to give. And slowly, without noticing, we turn into people pleasers, exhausted, overwhelmed, and silently resentful. But here is the truth most people never say out loud. Boundaries are not cruel. Boundaries are a form of self-respect. A boundary is not a wall that keeps people out. It is a door that decides who gets access, when they get access, and how they get access to your life. Without boundaries, your energy becomes public property. Anyone can walk in, take what they want, and walk out. Boundaries are simply a way of saying, I matter too. My time matters. My feelings matter. My priorities matter. But when you don't set them, you silently declare the opposite. The painful thing is that the people who benefit the most from your lack of boundaries are usually the ones who complain the loudest when you finally set them. When you start saying, I can't do that today, they call you selfish. When you say, I need some space, they say you've changed. When you stop putting them first, they make you feel guilty. But understand this clearly. Anyone who gets offended by your boundaries was only comfortable with you having none. Healthy people respect limits. They understand that everyone has a life, responsibilities, emotions, and limits. Unhealthy people see boundaries as threats because they lose the control, convenience, and comfort they once enjoyed at your expense. And often, this fear of disappointing or losing people is the exact reason you avoid creating boundaries. You feel responsible for their reactions. You feel guilty for making them uncomfortable. But ask yourself, why is your discomfort acceptable while theirs is not? Why is your peace less important than their expectations? Setting boundaries is not about pushing people away. It's about pulling yourself back into your own life. It's about reclaiming your emotional territory. It's about choosing who deserves your energy, not blindly giving it to anyone who demands it. When you say yes to everything, you are actually saying no to your own growth, goals, and well-being. Every unnecessary commitment steals time from your own journey. Every forced favor drains emotional fuel you need for your own healing. And every time you stay silent instead of stating your limits, you teach the world that your needs are negotiable. But something beautiful happens the moment you begin practicing boundaries. You start feeling lighter. You start breathing easier. You start hearing your own thoughts again because they're no longer drowned by everyone else's demands. You begin to see who truly values you for who you are, not just for what you can offer. Some people will step back, some will walk away, and some will stay and adjust. And that's how you learn who belongs in your life. Remember, boundaries are not punishments, they are protection. They protect your mind from overload, your heart from manipulation, your time from being wasted, and your soul from being drained. They protect your inner peace, which is more precious than any approval you could gain from being overly available. You don't set boundaries because you don't care. You set boundaries because you finally care about yourself. And that shift transforms everything. Many people walk through life carrying weight that was never theirs to carry. They fix problems they didn't cause, apologize for things they didn't do, and rescue people who never learn because someone is always rescuing them. It comes from a good heart. You see someone struggling and your instinct is to step in and help. But slowly, without realizing it, you begin to take responsibility for other people's irresponsibility. And that is where the emotional burden begins. When you keep solving problems that aren't yours, You become the emotional firefighter for everyone else's chaos. They make a mess and you grab the broom. They create drama and you become the counselor. They make decisions without thinking and you handle the consequences. You become the shock absorber of their poor choices. And what's worse is that they start believing this is normal. Your help becomes expected. Your assistance becomes routine. They begin to think you should fix things because you always have. This is how a dangerous pattern forms. Their problem becomes your responsibility. Their stress becomes your anxiety. Their lack of planning becomes your emergency. And the more you keep rescuing, the more they stop trying. Why would they learn to stand if you always offer your shoulder? Why would they become independent when you make dependence so comfortable? Help is supposed to empower people, not weaken their ability to handle life on their own. But when you constantly intervene, you unintentionally take away their opportunity to grow, to learn, and to face the consequences that would shape them. It's not just about them, it's also about you. When you carry burdens that aren't yours, your mind begins to feel heavy. Your schedule gets filled with tasks that don't benefit your life. Your energy gets wasted on problems you never created. You wake up tired, not because your life is difficult, but because you're living everyone else's life while yours is being neglected. You sacrifice your peace trying to maintain someone else's comfort. You apologize for being tired. You feel guilty when you can't help. You feel responsible when things go wrong in their life, even when you had nothing to do with it, and slowly you forget what it feels like to take care of yourself without interruption. But here is the truth, very few people are brave enough to accept. You cannot heal people who refuse to change. You cannot save people who enjoy being rescued. You cannot fix people who benefit from staying broken. Some people don't need your solutions. They need accountability. Some don't need your time. They need consequences. Some don't need your emotional labor. They need to face the reality they keep running from. Letting someone face their own problem is not cruelty. It is maturity. It is wisdom. It is an act of love, both for them and for yourself. When you stop solving their problems, you give them the chance to step into their own strength. You give them the opportunity to learn responsibility, and you give yourself the right to breathe again. You weren't born to be a repair center for other people's mistakes. You weren't created to be a dumping ground for stress that doesn't belong to you. You are allowed to step back. You are allowed to say, this is not mine. You are allowed to return the weight to the person it belongs to. Because the moment you stop fixing problems that aren't yours, two things happen. The wrong people get upset, and the right people start standing on their own feet, and in that moment, you reclaim your peace, your time, and your emotional freedom. The things you were losing every time you picked up a burden that was never meant for you. When you give someone your attention, you are giving them something far more valuable than money, gifts, or help. You are giving them pieces of your time. Why? Our presence, your mind, and your emotional space. Attention is not cheap. It is one of the rarest forms of love. But the problem begins when your attention is given freely, instantly, and continuously to people who have done nothing to earn it, respect it, or reciprocate it. Many relationships, friendships, romances, even family connections begin to fall apart not because you stopped caring, but because the other person stopped appreciating the attention you were giving. They started treating it as a guarantee rather than a gift. They felt entitled to your presence instead of grateful for it, and